Theology. That's what she said to me one day. Theology. Tam, are you sure you don't want to pick up theology, study it, go abroad? And I'm like, no. I had long since picked up my knowledge way up north, in and amongst some prehistoric trees. And I didn't need to expand my knowledge or my wisdom beyond those trees. So when my mother asked me that question, I said no. And so on occasion, I do watch these videos of other people talking about things that I know may differ in real history, because isn't all history questionable based on the changes that were made along the way to reflect a better picture, a better view for other people versus the ones that held the knowledge? Yes, that is how it works. So if you are out there studying in school and going to college and getting all kinds of certifications on your back, thinking you're actually going to progress, it's so easy for somebody to scalp all your hard work and apply it to themselves. I recently watched this video. This guy was talking about the Barbary lions that no longer exist. And I had to tap my memory banks on that, because they were not known as the Barbary lions. Barbary. They weren't known as that. They were known as the Bernice lions. And they were named the Bernice lions after the country Greece, because they heavily occupied the surrounding borders of the country Greece. And they favored Grecians for some reason. No one could figure it out. They even watched a family of Grecians move to another location in another country, and they watched as these lions separated out and migrated, a few, to idly sit by this family that had moved to another country. So for whatever reason, the Bernice, aka Barbary lions, had some interwoven connection to the people of Greece. And so in this video that I watched with this guy, he was talking about how the Romans would capture the Bernice lions and bring them into the arena and put on a show of fighting these lions. And that's not quite how it went. So how it really went was the Romans leveled in their entirety. There are some small quantities of lingering blood related to the Huron, but the Romans sought out to intentionally kill the Huron. The reason why they killed the Huron was no other. It was called the senseless kill. They just wanted the numbers on their side, because back in those days, royal blood was held based on streams of knowledge. So if you had historical blood that dated back hundreds and thousands of years, and you held that knowledge in your blood for all those years and kept accurate track of all the knowledge that was carried forth from people from the earliest beginning of man throughout the bloodline, you were considered royal blood. Not based on wealth, not based on acquisition, not based on, how many vehicles that you have in your driveway. Royal blood was not viewed that way. It was viewed mostly on quantity of blood and knowledge held. And so back in those days, they were still trying to locate graves of their ancestors. And they wanted to have all the graves of their ancestors relocated into a certain area so that spiritually they could be educated by their ancestors. And so the Romans were not up in statute on they were there, but they didn't have the knowledge that allowed them entrance into topics of discussion where certain people held these discussions. And so a question came down pretty much from the top of the knowledge house. And all they wanted to know is, for all these different segments of people, if they had record of whenever they were in battle and how many people died, and like how many were on your side versus how many people were on another side, and do you know what those people are? Because they were trying to locate the graves and tombs and stuff of their ancestors. Well, the Romans picked up the question incorrectly because they were trying to move themselves further up into the knowledge house so that they could be part of these larger discussions. And so they took the question the wrong way. And so they sought out to kill a large number of people that just happened to be the Huron, and they leveled them to the brink of all extinction. And how they did it was they lured the men through using women and children, killed the men, continued that process until they got all, they thought they had killed all the men, and then they went about killing all the male children, and then they killed all females regardless of age. And so the question came down because they were trying to locate these graves, and so the Romans went out, they killed the Huron, and the Huron were part of the upper echelon of the knowledge house. So when they had discussions, the Huron would come through and go to the top to hold these discussions with all other people. So in all reality, the Huron were considered royal blood based on their ancestry and their knowledge. So when everyone thought that they had all the information put together, and the Romans were all like, happy to present their numbers because they were thinking, the increase in deaths would definitely get them through the upper echelon and into the house. And so when the Huron never showed up for these discussions, they sent people looking for them. And what came back was they discovered that they couldn't find any living Hurons. And so they didn't say anything, the upper echelon. They were very smart and very intelligent. they hand selected a group of people that they knew would be able to be well protected, and that they had the skills and the knowledge to gain the information, and they trusted them to bring that information back. And so they launched an investigation, and they hand selected the Grecians. And the Grecians came over and they watched as the lions separated themselves out, and they followed suit with the Grecian men, more like warriors, that came here. The Huron pretty much occupied what is now known as Canada, and the Sioux, in equal numbers, occupied the territory now known as the United States. And so when the Grecians came over, the lions followed them. Even across the waters, they followed them. And so somewhere through, you know, I'm sure they will find those Bernice lions somewhere in Canada or in the United States, a presence of them. Okay? And so anyways, the Grecians went back. They informed the upper echelon of what they had discovered through their investigation. And the next investigation that they launched was, well, how did they die, and at whose hands caused all of this to happen? And they accurately tracked it back to the Romans. And so the Romans were pretty much like forbidden to engage in any discussions. No information ever came down from the upper echelon and filtered through the house. They were like left to their own demise, and for what they had done, because they did get called up on it. And, they tried to back their way out of it, saying, they totally misunderstood the question, and they were trying to get into the house. They tried to explain it all, but there was no explanation for that type of genocide. So then the Romans decided to pay back the Grecians who had conducted the investigations, and they started to lure these lions into the arena. And when the Grecians found out that the animals that had always been by their side were getting laid down in large numbers for entertainment purposes, they began to enter that arena. And that's when fighting matches between Romans and other types of men came about. So in the course of all that, the most important thing, or the takeaway, is that when the Romans were pretty much barred from interacting with all these people, they gained popularity from the masses of people that had nothing. And so from that popularity and inviting them into these entertainment type arenas where they were previously restricted from any involvement with the Romans, and now they're in the midst of them, and they learned of the lies told in between by the Romans, they picked up that same level of footing, and they carried it forth and filtered lies into just about everything. There is no royal family that I know about where they held their ancestral ties and the knowledge from throughout all those days. Probably the closest, this is why I don't have a problem with the Russians, is because they are Russians standing on Russian soil, and they're protecting their own people on their own soil. So I don't really have a problem with what they do, because, if you look back on ancient times and historical bloodlines, they have maintained their position under those lines for a long, long time. I'm sure China and a few other countries have done similar things, but this whole movement towards the United States under this false blanket of freedom has gone way too far. So those lions, they are now labeled as the Barbary, Barbary lions. But historically, in ancient times, they were known as the Bernice lions. And they were like the security blanket of the Grecian people. They never, ever, ever posed a threat to the people of Greece. They were always like the comfort blanket around them. And they could pretty much go up and feed them and touch them, and you know just like a household pet. But if anybody else did that, it's almost like those lions could read the Grecians' blood, and almost like they shared the same bloodlines. And so they were always their comforting blanket around Greece. On the opposite side, when we're talking the Hurons' security blanket was always wolves. And the Huron traveled in large numbers with large quantities of wolves, primarily by foot. And so, in comparison, I would say that upper echelon made the right choice by sending the Grecians here to investigate what happened to the Huron. There's my theology, Mom. It's like I can just pick it up by looking at a few things, and then, it's like the connection just comes all together. But no, I don't want to go to theology school, because I'd get into some huge arguments with people about things that don't make sense to me.